What's hiding inside Coca-Cola cans and regular household batteries? Why do magnets affect breakfast cereals? Do crosswalk buttons actually work, or are they just useless decorations? What does that USB symbol really mean? I'm not sure I know the answers to these and similar questions, but I'm eager to learn the truth together with you. Let's find it out. Coca-Cola cans have a secret few people know about. Here's a Coke can. Let's submerge it in a highly corrosive alkaline solution. The aluminum dissolves due to a process known as hydrolysis, and we can see a plastic liner inside the can. It's made from a polymer or epoxy resin and serves as some kind of a protective barrier between the aluminum walls of the can and the rather acidic soda. Despite a plus, the lines make chips crunchier. Now this one might be a surprise, but some breakfast cereals are magnetic. That's because they're often fortified with iron in the form of a fine powder. Due to the added iron, cereal flakes get attracted to magnets. All this may sound kinda alarming, but in reality, the iron content in the flakes is minimal and doesn't pose any threat to your health. That clear fluid in gel pens is called the ink follower or stopper fluid. The gel in such pens contains pigment particles dissolved in a polymer solution. The main task of the stopper fluid is to be a barrier to prevent the gel from evaporating or leaking out. Without this transparent fluid, your gel pen wouldn't function. The fluid always stays in one position and doesn't get dissolved with the gel. Neither does it move backwards or flow out of the pen. Many pedestrian crosswalk buttons, namely in New York, are placebo buttons. They do literally nothing when you press them. Originally, they were functional after being introduced in 1964, but today, most of them don't affect traffic lights, which are programmed based on the real needs of the traffic flow. Why do such buttons even exist then? It's a simple psychological trick, providing you with an illusion of control. You might have noticed that movie theater seats are almost always red. This choice isn't random, it has strategic importance, which is rooted in visual science. The thing is, red light has a longer wavelength. It means that it's the first color to disappear in low light. It allows the audience to concentrate better on the screen once the movie begins. Such a design choice enhances the viewing experience by minimizing distractions. Speed bumps are crucial for pedestrian safety, but at the same time, they can seriously increase car emissions due to the non-stop acceleration and deceleration they cause. To address this issue, some cities like London are testing fake speed bumps. Those are optical illusions painted on the road. They look raised from a driver's perspective, but in reality, they're flat. Authorities hope that this approach will slow down drivers without having a negative impact on the environment. Soda bottles are always filled in such a way that there's some space between the liquid and the cap. That's because soda contains carbon dioxide. It's a gas that can expand once the bottle's heated. If there's no gap in the bottle, it can break because of the pressure building inside. Also, when you open your drink, the gases go out in the form of bubbles, making the drink overflow. The gap helps with this problem too. The USB symbol, looking like a trident, has always sparked multiple speculations about its origin. One popular idea is that it represents Neptune's trident and symbolizes power and adaptability. But there's also a little bit less exciting theory. A man who claimed to have designed the symbol in the 1980s stated that it was supposed to represent connectivity. The large circle symbolizes a computer, while the attached shapes, the circle, the triangle, and square, stand for different outputs. The design of a tennis racket has a specific feature known as the throat. It's an open space below the head of the racket. This space isn't just for storing balls, it also improves the racket's aerodynamics by letting air pass through. It seriously reduces drag during swings. Speaking of tennis courts are usually built with a north-south orientation. It helps minimize the impact of the sun's position during the game, ensuring that neither player has the sun directly in their eyes. Look closely at a tram's overhead lines, and you'll see that its contact wires zigzag back and forth instead of going in a straight line. That's because all trams have pantographs attached to their roofs. The upper part of the pantograph is gradually worn down by the overhead wire and eventually needs to be replaced. To wear it down evenly, the wire is not installed strictly along the tram's path, but in zigzag patterns. As the tram moves, the pantograph slides along the wire, and it wears down evenly. Those cone-shaped water cooler cups? Their shape is intentionally designed to prevent users from setting the cups down. This allows employees to minimize the risk of spilling water on their desks around various electronic devices. Plus, less material is used to produce cone-shaped cups, which makes the process less wasteful and more cost-effective. It also kinda supports sustainability by encouraging people to drink their water quickly and dispose of their cups immediately after. Most suitcases have 2 zipper pulls, and it serves several purposes. First of all, if one zipper fails, the other can keep the suitcase closed. Even better, having 2 zippers allows you to have easier access to small sections of your suitcase without having to open it entirely. And finally, when you have 2 zippers, you can connect them with a padlock for increased security. Some plastic milk containers have dents on their sides. These dents serve several purposes. When milk spoils, it usually causes swelling and high-pressure buildup inside the container. That's when the dent pops out and doesn't let the jug blow up. Plus, if you decide to freeze the milk, it will expand like any other fluid. And then again, the indentation will pop out and prevent the container from breaking inside your freezer. If you ever had a problem figuring out why fake pockets exist, you need to hear this. The main reason is that if a clothing item has a specific cut or shape, pockets may spoil it. They can alter the item's shape either in the warehouse or already on the retail rack. The solution? Getting rid of the pockets in key areas. Plus, fake pockets are obviously cheaper, and they don't get stretched out. The thermos wasn't actually invented to keep your coffee warm. It was made by a Scottish scientist who wanted a safe place to keep his chemicals at a stable temperature. So, he took 2 bottles, put the smaller one inside the bigger bottle, and vacuumed out the air between them.
Now, doctors recommend risking your life at least twice a day. I mean, brushing your teeth at least twice a day. But you see, the seemingly harmless toothpaste that peacefully chills on every American counter poses a life-threatening danger because of one not-so-harmless ingredient, sodium fluoride. Now, don't get me wrong, not every toothpaste out there contains it, but most of them still do. But don't rush to the bathroom to trash your tube. If you swallow a tiny pea-sized glob, it isn't fatal. I'm talking about larger quantities. A toothpaste tube has only 0.15% fluoride. To send you running to the hills, you must consume around 8 tubes one by one, so technically, toothpaste is totally safe. Let's go and look for more dangers at your place, shall we? Personally, I don't have this one, but if you happen to have a CFL light bulb, you gotta be extremely cautious with it. The thing is, many of those bulbs are made with mercury. If such a bulb breaks, you gotta start by turning off your ventilation system. Otherwise, the contamination will only get worse. Make sure everyone has left the room, then open a window to allow for fresh air circulation. Finally, clean the area where the bulb shattered. Be careful to address both wet and dry surfaces and contact specialists. Mercury vapors are definitely the biggest concern when it comes. Now, apart from being a great food additive and warding off vampires, garlic has cleansing properties that can make things more tolerable around the bathroom. And we can all use that. Freshly crushed garlic cloves contain a variety of antimicrobial properties. Allicin reduces the buildup of bacteria and fungi. The natural cleansing properties of garlic are not only great for the environment, but they can also help you avoid the need to constantly clean the toilet. Simply crush up a piece of garlic and put it into your toilet bowl before you go to bed. The next morning, flush the toilet. The allicin has done the grueling task of cleaning the toilet for you. Doing this 2 times a week will ensure a very clean toilet bowl. Hair grease and grime build up over time and eventually clog the drains. Removing the blockage is easy with salt and vinegar. Using a small bowl, add 1 cup of vinegar and 1 cup of salt and mix thoroughly until it's evenly combined. Pour the mixture into the drain and wait for 15 to 30 minutes, depending on the severity of the clog. This method will save on money, further showing that salt and vinegar aren't just good on chips, but they are. Now, to further ensure the drain is clear of not only the blockage, but also the smell, add 3½ ounces of baking soda. Boil 6 ounces of water and mix in 1 cup of vinegar. Pour the baking soda into the drain, followed by the boiling water and vinegar mix. It will begin sizzling once the reaction starts, so just sit back and let it do its thing. An hour later, the blockage, along with the smell, will be gone. Scorched pans tend to use a lot of elbow grease, but they can be cleaned a lot easier with the right ingredients. Fill your pot or pan with water and add in about 1 cup of vinegar. Bring the liquid to a boil, then remove the pan from the heat before it completely dries up, ensuring there is a small amount of liquid remaining. Sprinkle baking soda on the base, covering the burnt parts. A couple of teaspoons should be enough to form a slurry. Watch and wait as the soda fizzes. Continue to move the pan around to ensure you cover the scorched areas. Once the fizzing stops, you're free to scrub away. Vinegar by itself can be used for many purposes. A couple of teaspoons mixed with water in a spray bottle will easily remove salt stains from shoes. Pour white vinegar into a container and place rusty tools inside. Overnight, the vinegar will eat away at the rust. After 24 hours, as you wipe it, you will be able to remove the corrosion easily. Baking soda also removes foul odors on furniture and carpet, as it gradually absorbs all the acidic odors within a covered area. Baking soda is a pH neutralizer, which means it absorbs smells that are acidic in nature. This includes most of the nasty smells we find throughout our living areas. When applying, ensure you are very generous while spreading. Leave it on the required area for at least an hour, and for best results, leave it on overnight. Then just suck it up with a vacuum cleaner. Charcoal contains the same odor-removing elements, only better, and deals with a greater variety of particles. However, you don't want to exchange smells for patches of black stains from the charcoal, but putting them into air freshener sachets and hiding them underneath the cushions will have the desired effect without the mess. There are various forms of cleaning you can do with vinegar. The reason why it's so effective is the acetic acid content, which is more powerful than other natural ingredients like coffee and orange juice. There is a process involved for vinegar to develop into the crime-fighting liquid that it is. The acetic acid that makes up the effective properties, it can be used on many surfaces without damaging them. Not only is it beneficial for cleaning and removing stains, but also for polishing copper, brass, bronze, and silver. Given its benefits for almost anything, it'll give your dishwasher an extra boost with a natural cleanse. Just fill up half a bowl of white vinegar and place it on the top rack before you start the machine. Then witness the immaculate results. Within the small space of a microwave, you can combine 2 cups of water with 1/4 cup of lemon juice in an open dish. Run the microwave on high for 8 minutes. The steam from the solution will get absorbed into the crusty layers within the microwave, and once complete, it'll be easier to clean, leaving a fresh, lemony smell. Using the oil of cloves and cinnamon, you can soak cotton balls in them and place them in small bags inside your closet. Moths and other insects can't stand these ingredients, which will ensure that your clothes remain untouched. Using similar ingredients, you can create your own humidifier with the stove in the winter. Simply fill a can 2/3 of the way with water, adding cinnamon sticks, cloves, and orange peel, and place it on the stove. While it adds moisture to the air, it'll also provide a soothing scent. Scratches, nicks, and marks made on wooden furniture can be restained with a pecan by simply rubbing it on the scratched or damaged area. Has your stainless steel cutlery and other flatware lost its shine? Put them in a small pan filled with carbonated water. Let them sit until the bubbles have completely gone flat. The steel will shine as good as new once removed and wiped down. Add witch hazel to the water fill in your iron, and as you're ironing your clothes, instead of the stale smell normally produced, you'll have a sweeter, fresher scent instead. Within the difficult corners of furniture where a vacuum cleaner's suction can't quite reach, use a paintbrush to easily reach the buildup that has escaped the suction for so long. Chewing gum stuck on your finger? Or maybe after popping it, is now stuck in your hair? Rub vegetable oil on it, then leave it for a few minutes until you're able to remove it easily. Ammonia is 100% safe for the environment, though it can be harmful to the skin. But its cleaning uses are extensive. Pour a cup of household ammonia into a small bowl in the oven, making sure the oven is off, and leave it overnight. The next morning, wipe it down with a damp wipe. You'll appreciate the difference as you easily clean the grime from the hardest places to wash. Ammonia's natural benefits should mean it's always used instead of bleach. In the bathroom, not only does it make the tiles sparkle like brand new, but it will easily remove mildew. 1/4 cup of ammonia per gallon will get the job done. Running half a lemon down the side of a cheese grater will effectively remove sticky food particles. Just remember to wash with water afterward. This ensures a more effective cleanse and keeps your fingers safe from being cut. Make sure to save the juice from the lemon, as it's a natural substitute for bleach. Using just 1/2 cup of juice per gallon, leave clothes to soak for at least an hour and then dry them out in the sun. The same volume can be used in a washing machine to brighten colors and bleach your whites. It's also possible to sanitize your earrings with 1 tablespoon of lemon juice in 1.5 cups of water. Just be sure to avoid putting your gold and pearls, as they're sensitive to the acids found in lemons. Apply olive oil and a bit of salt when washing your cast iron pans after cooking. This will ensure you remove all the debris and will reduce the effects on the surface of the pan, extending its usage. Without using salt, the same method can be used to remove stains on stainless steel benches and ovens. Gently cleaning with a small amount of olive oil in a circular motion will not only remove charred fragments, but will also restore their shine. Due to the antimicrobial properties that olive oil contains, it's an incredibly safe and natural alternative to chemicals. Further varieties of oils, like tea tree oil, have even more benefits with their antiviral and antifungal properties. By using distilled oil in a spray bottle with a few drops of olive oil, you can make your own ready-to-use all-purpose cleaner. Well, it's a nice Sunday afternoon and
to air, their insides kinda oxidize, resulting in a brown color. There's a tip on how to prevent it. You can sprinkle lemon juice all over your apple, for example. Storing it in the fridge helps too. Picture this. You're walking home from a supermarket, your shopping bag fails you, and your groceries end up on the sidewalk. Sometime later, you realize your veggies are bruised. Trust me, it's not a big deal. Yeah, their cell structure is damaged, but it doesn't make them inedible. However, it's better to remove the bruised part of your veggies because they are open to microbes. The watermelon looks as if it just got a tattoo. The ornament is cool, but watermelons don't go to tattoo artists, and the only thing the retailers can draw is a price tag. This mosaic means that the watermelon is sorta sick. Officially, it's called watermelon mosaic virus and can be found on squash and some other veggies too. Good news, it's still safe to eat, unless you're from the cucurbit family, meaning it poses a danger to you only if you're a pumpkin or something. Okay, this one may sound a bit crazy, but sour pasteurized milk isn't likely to make you feel bad. You won't probably like its smell, and if it doesn't pass the sniff test, you can use it for homemade cheese or pancakes. Anyway, trust your guts. If you don't feel it's good to go, throw it away. You don't want to mess with dairy products. As for vegetable milk, some people believe that if it gets layered, it's off. Well, it's not quite so. Try shaking it well, give it a sniff test, and probably it's still good to go. Green may be the synonym for fresh, but remember, it can also be the synonym for toxic. The green parts of potatoes, their sprouts, and their eyes have natural toxins. No matter how long you fry them, those toxins still remain even in the cooked green potatoes. There are 2 potato red flags: green color and bitter taste. Spotted any of those? Discard the villain. Fresh sprouts don't mean the veggies are flourishing. They mean your veggies have gone too far. You know what it means? Right, toss them. Good news, y'all pasta lovers. Dry pasta won't expire. Ever. Or almost. Like honey, it's officially the eternally lasting product, but pasta beats food longevity records too. Still, air and humidity aren't dry pasta's best friends. So it's advised to store unopened boxes of pasta for about 2 years, while the opened ones can last for up to a year. You're enjoying your Caribbean vacation. Nature is idyllic. Look at that tree with some yummy fruit on it. Wanna grab? Nah, not so fast. It even has a warning sign, Manchineel trees, poisonous. And yep, the inscription is translated into Spanish and German to make sure as many people as possible stay away from here. Those fruits look like harmless apples, but you don't want to munch on them unless you haven't done everything you ever wanted in this life. You don't want to touch it either. And stay away from the tree. Right, pretty much any part of this notorious tree can seriously mess with you. One more problem. It's not that easy to get rid of the tree. Once someone cuts it, it replies with milky ooze squirting right at whoever wants to banish the tree. The result is unpromising, blisters and burns. If the sap gets into your eyes, you'll get temporary blindness as a bonus. Good news, there's still a way to tame those trees. To do that, people first need to burn the tree at the base, preferably standing far away. Then the fallen tree is left to sunbathe for some time, and after it's dried, it's safe to cut. There's even unique and unexpectedly safe furniture made from Manchineel trees. This is a football, and this is a football fruit. The first one can harm you if it hits you right in the head, but the second one is a bit more dangerous, even though it seems harmless. Football fruit is another example that a chef should know exactly what and how to cook. The large seeds of this fruit are pure poison. But still, people learned how to use even poisonous parts for medicinal and even cooking purposes. For example, football fruit can be effective against parasites and for storing fish in the Philippines. Guacamole tastes best with ripe, creamy avocados, but there are sometimes brown and black streaks or dots in the flesh. Don't worry, such avocados are still edible, but the taste won't be that mild. But if you want to make an avocado shrimp salad, you better watch out for the brown lines down the shrimp's back. This line is the shrimp's digestive line, and cooking actually helps get rid of all the bacteria. But you don't want to eat that, huh? Right, and what about white holy stuff in your mango? It's not the pit, but it sort of looks like one. In reality, this is just the starchy mango tissue, which means it's safe to eat, at least around the holy stuff. You cut your peach in halves, but the pit looks off. The area around is bumpy and weird, and the pit itself has split open. This one is fun. The split probably appeared when the peach was still on the tree. And that weird stuff is just the sign that the peach has tried to repair the damage. One more about peaches. The black spots on the skin, eat or toss. Eat, but don't forget to peel it before. If the flesh below looks good, munch on it, but trust your gut and probably your nose and your tongue. If the taste is regular, there's no need to worry. This one is frequent. Apple scab. This one is totally safe, despite it being a fungus. The exterior may not look appetizing, but who cares? The important thing is that it's still yummy, but still, it's better to cut the fungus-infested part. And what if the strawberries in your fridge look wet and seem to be coated in juice? Well, this one is a sure sign you gotta leave them alone. They're just too old to be eaten, and they're quite vulnerable to germs. Plus, these berries won't taste the same way they did when they were young and beautiful. Fancy some salmon? Sure, if you like it oven-baked or grilled, you may notice some weird white ooze once it's cooked. Do you know what it means? It means you gotta grab the cutlery and enjoy your dinner. This ooze is just coagulated protein, and it's perfectly edible. Bon appetit! Remember, we don't want to eat sprouted potatoes, right? But sprouted sweet potato is still good to go, and the taste doesn't differ much from non-sprouted sweet potato. Actually, even the sprouts themselves are edible. But let's play it safe at least and toss them.
Now, it should come as no surprise that most things around us seem to have a hidden purpose. Hey, down at the aquarium, they have a hidden porpoise. But I digress. Now, please tell me in the comments if you like my joke or about how many of these 26 multi-purpose thingamabobs you knew about before. It's cool either way. Let's go! Check the space button on your phone, tap and hold it, and see how it turns into a cursor. This way, you can navigate the text you've typed easily instead of trying to tap that very letter you wanted to change. If this feature doesn't work on your phone, consider upgrading your firmware. Hair conditioner is meant to make your hair soft, but it can also be used as a makeshift fabric softener. Use it for hand washing only. Your washing machine might dislike this trick. Use an old pillowcase to separate your delicate laundry from the rest of your clothes. Underwear, slips, stockings, you name it. Before laundry, make sure your stuff doesn't fall out into the washing machine by turning the pillowcase into a drawstring bag. Sew a hem into the opening of the case and feed a string through the hem, then pull it, and you're done. Then just toss the filled pillowcase.
Don't deal with it. It will continue to degrade the metal. Don't deal with it. It will continue to degrade the metal. So, you need to get rid of it before your car becomes metal. So, you need to get rid of it before your car becomes physically useless. That's when ketchup comes in. It's key useless. That's when ketchup comes in. Its key ingredient is tomatoes, and they have many nutrients similar to those you can find in oranges and some other citrus fruits. For instance, citric acid can help you remove rust from metal surfaces since it eats through rust. We're not talking about the cars only. You can use it on metallic kitchenwares, furniture parts, jewelry, and rust spots on generally any metallic item. You can combine it with washing soda. It's not quite effective against rust, but when you combine it with ketchup, it'll do the work. Mix these two and apply them to the rusted area. Leave it like that for about half an hour and wash it with a wet cloth or sponge. You can combine ketchup with salt instead, or just apply a lot of it on the rusty area without using any additional ingredients. Ketchup removes tarnish from brass copper too. Put it on brass hardware on doors and cabinets, or some accessories such as bowls and candlesticks for 10 minutes to make it all shine. And also, you don't put it on meat just because of taste. Ketchup breaks down its fibers, which means it makes it more tender.
Locking handles as we know them were only invented relatively recently, in 1878. Before that, people had to get pretty inventive to secure their homes. Most folks used a latch string. They'd make a small hole in the door, thread a leather thong or string through it, and then loop it around a wooden bar. Even after doorknobs were invented, only the wealthy could afford a proper lock and key. Vacuum cleaners had a rough start too. The first one was invented in 1901, but it was so huge that it wouldn't fit inside houses. Instead, vacuuming was offered as a mobile service. The machines were parked outside, and long hoses were fed through the windows. And to get to the client's house, these large cleaning machines were actually pulled by horses. Back in the day, animals even used to pull strollers. Yep, with kids inside. The stroller was first developed in 1733 for the daughters and sons of a British nobleman who might have been a bit too lazy to walk with them every day. So, the first model was basically a shell-shaped basket on wheels that could be pulled by a goat or a small pony. This small chariot was cute, but probably not the safest way to get around. Refrigerators also used to be a bit scary. From the late 1800s until 1929, they used toxic gases like ammonia, methyl chloride, and sulfur dioxide to cool things down. People were so concerned about gas leaks that they began leaving their refrigerators in the backyard instead of keeping them in the kitchen. This danger even inspired Albert Einstein to create a new model. In 1926, Einstein and his former student Leo Szilard invented a refrigerator with no moving parts, using safer, environmentally friendly gases to reduce the risk of toxic leaks. But it had one problem. Einstein's refrigerator was less efficient than existing appliances, so it wasn't commercially appealing. If you ever find yourself casually wandering in the forests of Estonia, don't freak out if you see some giant megaphones. These wooden acoustic giants were set 3 hours away from the country's capital by interior architecture students. That's way cooler than the hamster roller coaster I once built for a science fair, I have to admit. More than half of Estonia is covered by woods, and they're pretty proud of this natural wealth. So it's not the first art project of this kind, and there was a winding, elevated pathway and a faceted woodland cabin. The idea of the megaphones is to crank up the natural sounds of a forest and also to serve as a rest spot for hikers. These wooden beauties are large enough to host several people. And hey, if you walk this far into the woodland, you'll be thankful for this. The students were given a task to invent some concepts of a forest library. They built the megaphones off-site and brought them to their permanent spots. They're set in such a way that sounds from 3 directions meet in the center and create a cool, natural surround sound effect. Thankfully, kitchen supplies, including our beloved grills, have come a long way. Back in the 1950s, a metalworker named George Stephen had a brilliant idea while trying to create the perfect steak. Frustrated with flare-ups and uneven cooking, he decided to cut an old ocean buoy in half. This allowed him to control the airflow better, and that's how the Weber Kettle Grill was born, changing backyard barbecues forever. Have you ever used a public bathroom in the summer in your shorts and sandals and got splashed? It happens to the best of us, so no worries. If only there was some solution to this problem. Perhaps a urinal with a small hole so no liquid goes where it shouldn't. Looks pretty yucky and painful to me. An assistant professor at the University of Waterloo, Zhao Pen, and his colleagues came up with a way better solution for this sensitive issue. Their designs were inspired by physics and dogs. When a stream of liquid moves on a solid surface at a shallow angle, the splash is reduced, and the smaller the angle, the fewer splashes you'll see. You can even minimize them to a 0. And when dogs do their business, they lift their hind legs and do it on the vertical surface of a tree or a wall. I don't know if they actually care about it, but this does reduce the splash. Good job, Pluto. Talking about that, here's a fun challenge for your next family gathering. Ask everyone to fold a piece of paper in half, then in half again, and keep going for a total of 7 folds. Spoiler alert, they probably won't succeed. That's because each fold makes the paper thicker and thicker. In fact, if you had a huge sheet of paper and folded it in half 50 times, it would end up being about 62 million miles thick, which is about 2/3 of the way from Earth to the Sun. So yeah, it's impossible. The current record is held by a high school student named Brittany Gallivan, who managed to fold a single piece of paper in half 12 times, and it was a tissue paper. The USB symbol, looking like a trident, has always sparked multiple speculations about its origin. One popular idea is that it represents Neptune's trident and symbolizes power and adaptability. But there's also a little bit less exciting theory. A man who claimed to have designed the symbol in the 1980s stated that it was supposed to represent connectivity. The large circle symbolizes a computer, while the attached shapes, the circle, the triangle, and square, stand for different outputs. Look closely at a tram's overhead lines, and you'll see that its contact wires zigzag back and forth instead of going in a straight line. That's because all trams have pantographs attached to their roofs. The upper part of the pantograph is gradually worn down by the overhead wire and eventually needs to be replaced. To wear it down evenly, the wire is not installed strictly along the tram's path, but in zigzag patterns. As the tram moves, the pantograph slides along the wire, and it wears down evenly. Those cone-shaped water cooler cups? Their shape is intentionally designed to prevent users from setting the cups down. This allows employees to minimize the risk of spilling water on their desks around various electronic devices. Plus, less material is used to produce cone-shaped cups, which makes the process less wasteful and more cost-effective. It also kinda supports sustainability by encouraging people to drink their water quickly and dispose of their cups immediately after. You're probably wearing a YKK product right now. I mean, go check the zipper on your jeans. Yep, that's it. YKK stands for Yoshida Kogyo Kabushiki Kaisha, a Japanese company that makes roughly half of all the zippers in the world.
producing over 7 billion zippers each year. Originally called hookless fasteners, they became known as zippers after a pair of rubber boots that could be fastened with a single zip became popular in 1923. The name stuck because of the high-pitched zip sound they make when used.
Despite a popular myth, household batteries don't actually contain liquid, and if you accidentally cut them open, no toxic liquid will spill. Most of them are dry cell batteries, which are made of electrochemical cells. Those convert chemical energy into electrical energy. Larger batteries often house numerous small cells within them too. Even Tesla vehicle batteries consist of multiple small cells. When combined, they easily provide the necessary voltage.
Did you know that nail polish used to be a status symbol? In ancient Egypt, queens like Nefertiti and Cleopatra were famous for their red nails, while lower-ranking citizens were only allowed to wear pale shades.
You'll probably agree that there's no better snack than a pack of chips. Some are flat, others have ridges. Is it just aesthetics? Not really. The main purpose of those lines on some kinds of chips is to help with the distribution of spices and seasonings. In other words, all those substances that make your chips taste like cheese are mostly stored inside the lines. Plus, the lines make chips crunchier.
This item here was also popular in ancient Egypt. What looks like a weird bench was actually a weird type of pillow. Back then, headrests were made from materials like wood, ceramic, and stone. Unlike our comfy pillows today, those ancient ones were used to protect people's hairstyles. That way, their hairdos stayed neat, even though they had a very uncomfortable night. If you've left a pot on the stove and your food burned, once again, take ketchup. Its acids will ease all the scrubbing and help you with grease. Just leave it over the night and you'll be able to wash the pot more easily. Or keep those small packages of ketchup we all end up having from fast food orders in the freezer. The ketchup won't be as hard as an ice cube as it freezes. So it will be good for soothing insect bites or similar things. For 8 centuries, forks were considered cursed and nearly forbidden in the West. The first models were used by the elite in the Middle East and the Byzantine Empire, and they made their way to the West in 1004, thanks to a noblewoman named Maria Agrippina. People were pretty shocked by it, to say the least. So when she passed away just 2 years later, everyone blamed the fork, thinking it was some kind of divine punishment. By the way, its name comes from the Latin word furca, which means pitchfork. Next on our list is Nike's iconic moon shoe, but I'm talking about the unique pattern of its sole. Back in the 1970s, Nike co-founder Bill Bowerman was making waffles for breakfast with his wife when he had a sudden idea to pour a plastic material called polyurethane into the waffle iron. The machine was ruined, of course, but I guess it was worth it since that's how the first Nike waffle trainer was born. I mean, its sole. That clear fluid in gel pens is called the ink follower or stopper fluid. The gel in such pens contains pigment particles dissolved in a polymer solution. The main task of the stopper fluid is to be a barrier to prevent the gel from evaporating or leaking out. Without this transparent fluid, your gel pen wouldn't function. The fluid always stays in one position and doesn't get dissolved with the gel. Neither does it move backwards or flow out of the pen. Let's move on to another favorite snack, popcorn. These days, cinema and popcorn go hand in hand, but it wasn't always this way. In the 1920s and 1930s, movie theater owners were hesitant to allow snacks in their theaters. They were worried about the mess and the crunching noises interfering with movies. Plus, popcorn used to cost only 5 to 10 cents, so they didn't see any financial benefit. But savvy street vendors saw a big chance. So, they got their own popcorn machines and started selling them outside theaters. That's why popcorn probably became the original clandestine movie snack, and theater staff would even have to check if people were hiding bags of it in their coats.
Have you ever helped your friends move into a new apartment in a building without an elevator? Then you're gonna love this one. Houses in Amsterdam have hooks on top. This is a medieval invention for pulling stuff up the houses. The simple tech consisting of a wheel and a rope still functions now, centuries later. Why not just use the stairs? Well, if you get inside one of those narrow Amsterdam buildings, you'll see there's hardly enough room to comfortably ascend, and you can forget about even trying to pull a table on top. Back in the medieval ages, pretty much like now, only rich people could afford housing around the canals in the best parts of the city. Those people were mostly traders and used the canals for their business. They stored goods in the same houses they lived in, and with regular floods, they had to find a way to keep the goods dry. And that's why they needed to invent something to lift furniture, goods, boxes, instruments, and food on the upper floors and pull it in through fully open, wide windows. The lifting tech is one of the reasons the houses in Amsterdam are leaning forward. This position helped keep both the lifted stuff and the walls and windows safe during transportation. They didn't have to touch each other. The gables also assisted in the process and had to be made firm to withstand all the heavy weight. And in case you're wondering what gables are, they're sections of wall between the edges of a dual-pitched roof, typical for Amsterdam.
Sticking with old-school fun, it's time to talk about cards. So, have you ever wondered how many times you need to riffle a deck to shuffle it completely? The answer is 7 times, according to math. Even cooler, if you shuffle a deck right, you're probably creating a unique order that's never existed before and never will again. And if you have a deck at hand, check out the 4 Kings. You'll notice that the King of Hearts is the only one without a mustache. He's not special or anything. I mean, he also used to have a mustache, but it was lost in the reproduction of the original design. Your home has more regular things that can do magic tricks. Like if you have a house or a big terrace and want to make a nice flower wall. Try old mattress springs. Just hang them on the wall and let your imagination run wild with flowers. An old flower sifter can still come in handy, for example, as a planter. Even if you don't have one, you might find it at a garage sale or a thrift store. Wallpaper is making its big comeback when it comes to home design. Maybe you can try something different and use some old books with torn pages. You just need to learn the basics of hanging wallpaper, and voila! You get a new cool place for your old books. There's a solution for the remains of an old book. Don't worry. You can have blocks where you'll keep your kitchen knives. It's pretty original, don't you think? Solitaire was probably everyone's go-to game to pass the time back in the 1990s, but its original purpose was far from it. When developers created this game, their idea was to teach people how to use a computer without them even realizing it. For example, dragging and dropping cards into one place helped people learn how to move files into folders. The same goes for Minesweeper, which was designed to help people get used to using a mouse and clicking. Cleaning blinds can be frustrating, but the next time you do it, try doing it with a sock over your hand. Hands are kind of perfectly shaped for getting all those nooks and crannies on the blinds, and the sock will do the rest. Here's something you wouldn't expect. Ice cubes can help you remove gum from carpet, clothing, and hair. Just put your clothes in the sink and add ice cubes. Leave it like that for a while. Ice will freeze the gum, so you can chip it away more easily. If the gum got stuck on the carpet, leave ice cubes right in the critical spot and remove the gum with a butter knife. It's a little bit harder to remove it from hair though, but still possible. Just wrap the ice and parts of your hair with the gum in a washcloth until the gum gets frozen. When you get there, you should be able to break apart the gum and free your hair using your fingers. Or next time you have to deal with a splinter, just take one ice cube to numb that area before you even start doing anything. You might have noticed that movie theater seats are almost always red. This choice isn't random. It has strategic importance, which is rooted in visual science. The thing is, red light has a longer wavelength. It means that it's the first color to disappear in low light. It allows the audience to concentrate better on the screen once the movie begins. Such a design choice enhances the viewing experience by minimizing distractions. Speed bumps are crucial for pedestrian safety, but at the same time, they can seriously increase car emissions due to the non-stop acceleration and deceleration they cause.
To address this issue, some cities, like London, are testing fake speed bumps. Those are optical illusions painted on the road. They look raised from a driver's perspective, but in reality, they're flat. Authorities hope that this approach will slow down drivers without having a negative impact on the environment. Soda bottles are always filled in such a way that there's some space between the liquid and the cap. That's because soda contains carbon dioxide. It's a gas that can expand once the bottle's heated. If there's no gap in the bottle, it can break because of the pressure building inside. Also, when you open your drink, the gases go out in the form of bubbles, making the drink overflow. The gap helps with this problem too. If you're more into Angry Birds, Candy Crush, and other mobile games, that's totally normal. After all, more people have access to cell phones than to toilets these days. But not many of us stop to think about how disgusting our phones can be. The natural bacteria from our skin and the oils from our hands get transferred to our phones with every touch, swipe, and tap. This makes phones about 10 times dirtier than toilet seats. Yikes!
It's breakfast, and you crack open a hard-boiled egg. You find that it's green. Looks disgusting. Well, it looks like you cooked it for too long. This happened because of the thin sulfur layer in the whites and iron in the yolk. Though the mixture of these chemicals is black, it's such a thin layer mixed into the yellow yolk that it turns green. But don't fear, these strange green eggs, they're completely safe to eat. While sitting for a photo, it would be weird to say anything other than cheese to get that perfect smile. But in the 19th century, it was different. Photographers would ask their subjects to say prune instead. The reason was to obtain that thin, duck-like expression. It was considered a prim and proper way to present a photograph. Strawberries aren't even considered a berry and are more of a false fruit, further identified as multiple fruit. What we believe is that the tiny little brown or white things are seeds, but they're actually individual fruits attached to its flesh. But how did this mistake start in the first place? Well, the confusion began hundreds of years ago when it was first named. However, this was a long time before botanists were even around to help clarify this mistake. Sci-fi films are often inspired by real-life space exploration, but there's one thing that NASA implemented after watching a sci-fi movie. A 1929 flick, Woman in the Moon, introduced a countdown that built up anticipation. NASA found this helpful and started using it in 1969. Not only is it an exciting moment, but it does also have a practical use. It helps the massive team behind each launch ensure they're synchronized perfectly down to the last second. This one might change your appetite the next time you see a juicy apple. Usually picked around August to November, the shiny supermarket apples are covered in hot wax, then hot air dried and sent into cold storage. Before they arrive at the supermarket looking fresh, they've been in storage for anywhere between 6 to 12 months. I bet you can't do this. Try and hum while closing your nose. No noise came out, right? Without an exit for air, it's physically impossible to make any noise. The world's largest national park in Greenland covers a staggering 375,000 square miles. That's twice the size of California. But although it's huge, there are only up to 40 permanent residents in this massive area, making it one of the most isolated places on Earth. Issues with bad breath? Gum is the typical choice, but other things are just as effective. Cucumber is a great natural solution and a more efficient one. Working similarly to gum, it helps stimulate saliva production, but what makes it different from other odor defeaters is its water content. Washing away any unwanted pieces of food still remaining also helps to avoid a dry mouth, which causes odors. You would think that Z would be the last letter put into the alphabet, but it was actually J. Long ago in 1524, an Italian grammarian wanted to identify a way to separate I and J. Together, they were a vowel, and J was then used as a consonant that sounded like Y. It wasn't until 1633 when an English grammar book explained the proper use of J, and it was entered into the alphabet in the way we use it today. The first vacuum cleaner was invented in 1901, the size of a Winnebago, and it took 4 people to operate it. A petrol engine used to supply power also required a horse to move it around. I would suppose that it was mainly used for cleaning up after the horse in the end. It wasn't long after that they found easier ways to clean the house, and in 1910 the first handheld vacuum was invented. If you've been told that you sweat like a pig, there is no need to be offended. It's actually more of a compliment, as pigs don't sweat. All swine are born without sweat glands, and the only way to cool off is to find a nice puddle, or more famously, some mud. Umbrellas were invented around 4,000 years ago, and were only socially acceptable for women to use them. Their original purpose was to keep the sun out of your eyes and as a fashion accessory. It wasn't until the mid-18th century that men were allowed to use them. In the modern, water-resistant version we use today was made. And most importantly, the very first dog umbrella was invented in 1965. Dentists can be very strict on what sweets you eat, so you would be amazed to learn that cotton candy was invented by a dentist. John C. Wharton, a dentist and confectioner, wanted to give his clients a treat every visit. Maybe he gave
Panel at the bottom that helps get rid of all those annoying breadcrumbs easily. Now, there used to be a time when you could only have access to video games by inserting cartridges in your console of choice. These tiny objects gave many doctors a lot of headaches. People soon started popping up in hospitals after swallowing small game cartridges, especially the younger generation.
Many people use a dust jacket of their book as a bookmarker. A dust jacket of their book as a bookmarker. No problem with that. It will save your book. No problem with that. It will save your book from bent page corners. But the primary purpose of a dust cover is to keep the book safe from distortions. For instance, if you spill juice or drop some of the food on your book while reading it. The Tic Tac dispenser has this little groove on its top, so you can dispense only one Tic Tac at a time. Even though, let's be honest here, nobody does that. Most of us just spill a whole bunch at once, and then we wiggle all those extra Tic Tacs back in. Those rubber bumps you see between the tire treads are there for your safety. The raised edges tell you what the minimum height of your tread is. If the bump and the edges are even, it's time for you to visit the tire shop as soon as possible. But if the bumps are well beneath the level of the edges, you're good to go. What about that black grating on the microwave window? It's something called a Faraday shield. And it's there to prevent microwaves from getting away and turning the entire room into a Faraday cage. If the microwaves escape, your meal won't cook properly either. So yep, the cage is not there to make it difficult for you to see your meal while it's cooking. It's keeping the electromagnetic energy into your meal while it's cooking. It's keeping the electromagnetic energy inside. How about a wrench-compatible screwdriver? Cover your screwdriver with the end of your wrench and you can increase its torque. That's why the head of your screwdriver is designed the way it is. When you have odd angles, you can use this strategy. You've probably heard those myths, the blue side of the eraser can erase the pen? False. Its purpose is to erase a pencil, but in case you're writing something on heavier paper. The blue side can remove smudges you see after using the pink eraser too. Have you ever wondered why oranges in supermarkets mostly come in the red mesh bag? It's a trick to make this food look more orange and encourage you to make a purchase. An extra tip, don't throw away the mesh bag. Tie it up so you can have a small pot scrubber to clean your sink, kitchen, appliances, and dishes. You can see golf balls don't have a perfectly round shape. Their surface is covered with many little dimples, something golf balls didn't always have. At one point, experienced golfers started noticing how, through time, older balls with imperfections, such as nicks and bumps, could travel further. Such things create turbulence in the air around the golf ball, which eventually reduces drag. So, manufacturers started producing balls with dimples so they could go farther and faster. You might have noticed that sometimes there are ridges in toothpick tops. It's more hygienic because when you break that off, you can prop the toothpick up on it, and it won't touch anything. Another safety feature you'll find, this time in your car, is a tab on your rearview mirror. With it, you can change the position of the mirror so you don't get blinded if there's a car behind you with its high beams on. So this little tab helps you control the glare of lights coming from behind. This feature showed up in the 1930s, but in the early 1970s, it became a part of standard equipment in most trucks and cars. Do you see that tiny hole on your iPhone right next to the rear-facing camera? It's a microphone, and it's there so your phone can record sound as you turn your camera around. Some cables have a thick cylinder towards the end.
Top, and lock yourself inside the bathroom. You jump out of your meditation when you hear a beeping sound. It's your toothbrush saying, "Data transfer completed." Your robot vacuum knocks at the door. Looks like it must be after you. Robot vacuums make a map of your home to get around and plan cleaning better. They can share this map with other gadgets via Wi-Fi and store them in the cloud. When advertisers get access to those maps, they can get an idea of your home size, your income level, and lifestyle to send the right ads your way. Vacuums don't have microphones, but their navigation systems can be repurposed to listen to your conversations. They map the room with a laser beam directed at objects. Sound waves affect that light. If you collect that data, you can convert it back into sound waves and identify what someone said. Headphones and microphones are based on the same idea. Headphones turn electrical signals into sound, and microphones turn sound into electrical signals. If you plug your headphones into the microphone jack, they'll work as a microphone. Bad guys learn to do it remotely without your consent. There's malware that retasks your computer output channel into input channel. It can record sounds from across the room even when the headphones are in their jack and the microphone is turned off and disconnected from the computer. Then it compresses the audio and sends it over the internet. There are computer mice that look like regular ones but have microphones and a built-in SIM card in them. The mics are so powerful they can even record whisper and broadcast that audio in real time. To activate it, you have to call the SIM card number and it goes on silently. To deactivate it, you can send an SMS to the same number. Some employers confirmed eavesdropping on their staff using that technology. A smart toothbrush remembers every move you made with it and shares it with you when you're done brushing. It also connects to your iPhone or Android using an app and sends data on your brushing habits to your dentist. They can watch over your brushing process and give you tips on how to take better care of your teeth. Smartwatches, fitness trackers, and other smart wearables monitor your health and can determine if you're walking, running, or driving with their built-in sensors. If third parties get control over that data, they can also monitor your hand movements as you unlock your phone, enter your PIN code at the ATM, or your password at the computer. The gadgets are smart enough to accurately guess all that secret data most of the time. They can also find out the email address you used when you registered with the app to identify who you are. Pacemakers and other health devices send patient data over the internet. In theory, criminals could obtain it during transfer and change it to look like the patient needs hospital treatment. That would make them leave their home, and bad guys could take advantage of the situation. Smart toys that have cameras and microphones in them can record videos and sounds and send them to the toy maker. To keep prices on smart toys lower, they don't add expensive security mechanisms to protect that data. If cybercriminals get a hold of it, they can steal pictures, videos, or audio, and even identify GPS coordinates of the house. LED lights equipped with sensors and connected to video cameras can watch over and listen to conversations over a large distance. This technology was used at one large airport for security and comfort reasons. Cybercriminals went further and learned to use ordinary light bulbs for eavesdropping on conversations. To do it, they need a clean line of sight between a powerful telescope and the bulb of the right thickness. It won't work if you have drapes on your window. When you're talking or listening to music, there are changes in air pressure on the surface of the bulb and it's shaking a bit. A special converter can turn data on the sounds from electrical to digital. Internet-connected thermostats can be operated remotely, and that made them desirable for cybercriminals. They once got access to millions of debit and credit cards data through a large retailer's heating and cooling system. Other bad guys found a way to remotely lock smart thermostats' controls and demanded ransom to unlock them. Smart fridges can tell you when it's time to buy milk, as they track your food preferences and have great connectivity. Smart dishwashers, coffee machines, washers, and dryers are also collecting and transmitting your data, even at moments you don't think they're doing it. Criminals can make use of that data to find out a lot about your schedule and guess when you aren't at home. Your voice assistant makes your life easier, but it must listen to you 24/7 to make that possible. They never record anything you say before you activate them with your voice. Everything that follows is stored in the cloud and can be of use for different companies. They can learn what music you like to listen to, what news stories interest you the most, and where you make your reservations. Some companies hire human reviewers to listen to commands to see if voice recognition works well and improve its accuracy. Xbox admitted they also hired people to listen to users' audio to improve voice command features. The problem is that it made some recordings by mistake and strangers were listening to personal chats. Home security cameras can take videos, pictures, and audio recording and upload them to the cloud without you even knowing. Manufacturers say it's done to improve object recognition. You can get access to that camera footage remotely using an app. There are programs that can guess a CCTV password and forward the video stream to a third-party computer. They can also get control over the camera and disable any signs of monitoring, like red light, so it seems inactive. Almost every car has an event data recorder that tracks information on its location, average speed, road condition, and even your preferred route. Your computer on wheels constantly streams that data to its manufacturer. They use it to try to prevent accidents and make other improvements. It's not clear who owns all that car-related information, so in theory, it could end up at a third party. Smart TVs run an operating system just like computers and also have a file system, cameras for video face recognition, and a microphone. They are always connected to the internet, and if cyber criminals get access to a TV, that can change certain settings and record audio even when the TV is off. They could also watch you through the camera and use the smart gadget to move to other devices on the same network, like your laptop. Well, I'm totally creeped out, so what can we do about it? You can disable automatic content recognition to stop your TV from giving you viewing recommendations and limit voice activation function for a safer experience. You'll find that option in General or Advanced Settings under Viewing Information or Viewing Data. You can also disconnect it from the cloud altogether. Always change default passwords and usernames on new devices to secure your network. Make up a new password for every gadget every now and then. You can also split your modem and use one Wi-Fi signal for laptops, iPads, and the like, and the other for security cameras. Don't forget to turn off the Wi-Fi router when you leave the house to minimize the risk of a digital intrusion. Whenever possible, enable two-step authentication that demands physical access to the device to log in. Always install software updates as soon as the gadget manufacturer offers you to do it. Updates have patches for detected vulnerability issues. Cover your laptop camera with a dark-colored tape when you aren't using it. Delete your conversations with a voice assistant. You can do it at the manufacturer's website or app. Another option is to activate the Delete by Voice function in Settings. Then you'll be able to tell the assistant to delete what you just said or your last conversations. You can also mute the device when you aren't using it and choose not to send data to manufacturer to help them improve services. If you have a thermostat that connects to your voice assistant, tap the microphone icon on its screen and set voice control to off. You won't be able to activate it remotely, and it won't be able to listen to wake words and send your audio anywhere. Okay, have a nice day.
You'd need a drop of liquid, a state-of-the-art laser 3D printer, and a couple of hours of work to make the tiniest fidget spinner ever. Its width will be smaller than that of your hair strand. At least researchers at Oak Ridge National Laboratory managed to do just that. A double stuffed Oreo cookie aren't double stuffed, in fact. A math teacher weighed 10 regular Oreos, 10 double stuffed Oreos, 10 mega stuffed Oreos. Turns out, double stuffed Oreos are only 1.86 stuffed Oreos. Chipotle peppers aren't some special type of pepper. They're good old jalapenos. Dried and smoked jalapeno is chipotle. In its gaseous form, oxygen is colorless and doesn't have any odor. But when it's liquid or solid, this substance looks pale blue. After being caught by a black hole, a star gets ripped apart by its enormous gravitational forces. Some parts of the star's remains hurtle into the black hole. The rest, in the form of a huge jet of plasma, is ejected with such force that it travels hundreds of light years away. Not so long ago, scientists decided the dino's family tree had to be redrawn for the first time in 130 years. Apparently, two species of dinosaurs had to be grouped together from the very beginning. Those were the lizard-hipped meat-eaters like T-Rex and bird-hipped vegetarians such as the Stegosaurus. A camel can drink up to 30 gallons of water in a bit more than 10 minutes. This water is stored in the animal's bloodstream. As for its fatty hump, it provides the camel with nourishment when there's little food around. Some sea animals like salmon or turtles use our planet's magnetic field to find their way home. Your lungs not only help you breathe, but they also produce blood cells. These cells are responsible for the clotting which stops bleeding. The lungs make more than 10 million of these tiny cells per hour. Only two letters never appear on the periodic table. Those are J and Q. Spin a ball when you drop it and it'll fly through the air while falling. This phenomenon is known as the Magnus effect. You can see it at work in different sports, for example tennis or baseball. Anatidaephobia is the fear that at any point, somewhere in the world, a duck or a goose may be watching you. The person isn't necessarily afraid that the duck or goose will get close to them or even touch them. They just don't like the feeling of being watched. It was first described in a comic strip to show you how anyone can be afraid of anything. Anything can be a phobia. A duck just watching my every move would certainly give me the heebie-jeebies. That first came up with this brilliant invention were engineers inspired by the way chocolate bars are segmented. Hold on a minute, don't throw away the cardboard package just yet. Most likely, you'll have some silica gel packets somewhere at the bottom of the box. Since this gel is basically a drying tool, it gathers up the moisture out of its environment, so you can store these packets for further occasions. Whether you'll need to dry out your phone or some other electrical object, you can place them in a container next to the silica gel to reduce the damage. You don't have to be a mechanic to know when a standard car tire needs replacing, since they come equipped with a neat indicator. Take a closer look, and you'll see that treads within the tire are a bunch of rubber notches. When the treads are evened out with the perpendicular bars, it's a sign you need to book an appointment with your local car service, since most likely the tires have lost most of their traction and may not be safe for driving any longer. The upper corners of a car windshield feature textured black dots melted into the glass edges. This neat add-on isn't there for design purposes. It's called frit glazing, which means that a special type of ceramic paint is added to the window for protecting its sealant from UV rays. It also conceals and creates a coarser surface for the adhesive used to set the window in place. Whenever you're up for a drive, check out if there's a small tab under your car's rearview mirror. Bet you didn't know it's there to help switch the mirror from daytime to nighttime views. It uses a prismatic glass technology to blur the reflection and reduce the glare of headlights behind you in traffic. People came up with these manually tilted mirrors in the 1930s, but they became standard somewhere in the 1970s. While you're in the car, check out the headrests, as you most likely don't know that they carry a little disguised purpose. Of course, they're adjustable to accommodate passengers of any height so that they get the proper support for their heads and necks. The hidden feature is that they are detachable and come with two very solid metal bars. Should you ever find yourself stuck in a car and need to make a fast getaway, these bars come in handy to crack out the car windows. So you're out for a drive and you're suddenly out of gas. What I'm about to describe sounds more like a meme than an actual situation bound to happen. But what if you're in such a hurry that you accidentally drive off with the gas nozzle still in the tank? Well, the nozzles have been designed to prevent any hazards from happening, rest assured. They feature a breakaway device that will allow the hose to separate when taken out with enough force. Initially designed in the early 20th century to be worn exclusively by basketball players, sneakers soon became one of those fashion fundamentals, similar to jeans and leather jackets. If you take a closer look at them, you'll see they have 2 extra holes on the side, similar to the shoelace holes. They're manufactured as such not only to provide extra ventilation, but to allow people to get extra creative with their laces when wearing the shoes. Admit it, you've always thought that chopsticks are merged at the end for the sole purpose of keeping them together until you're ready to dig into your meal. That may or may not be the whole truth. Under a more detailed inspection, the wooden tools feature a square-shaped end. Chopsticks manufactured like this date back to an old Japanese traditional design, which can help with breaking the ends easily. The separated end can then be used as a resting block for the chopsticks to keep it more sanitized in hopes it can be used again, since they won't be touching the table or any other surface. Women's bikes have a special design which, surprisingly, has a historical and fashionable purpose. The lower frame is for the most part meant to make up for the generally shorter height of ladies, compared to that of the average gentleman. While that is the case for handlebars and saddles, the overall frame is lower for an additional purpose. Way back when women wore long skirts and dresses all day, every day they needed to make sure their outfits wouldn't get caught in the frame. That's how we came up with a lower framed bicycle, perfectly made for women and their needs at the time. The fact that toothpastes are multicolored is not just a nice perk to make dental hygiene more fun. There's a secret meaning related to each of the colors, which dates back to the 1970s. In those days, people grew more and more interested in their oral health care, and as such, they were looking for products which could do more than merely clean their teeth. One company was the pioneer in that regard, adding mouthwash to its toothpaste, meaning the blue strip. They later added on the red strip, meant to feature ingredients which helped with gum care. Speaking of toothpaste, check the cap next time you open a new tube. You may be in for a little surprise. There's a pointed cone shape inside the cap, so you can puncture the seal of the toothpaste without cutting yourself or ruining your manicure. Not to mention, it's more hygienic since you won't be able to transfer germs or other bacteria into the product itself. On the subject of bathroom countertop items, toothbrushes come with a neat add-on hidden in the bristle patterns. Apart from making the toothbrush look cooler, they also do come with a practical purpose. Most toothbrushes come with a pattern of blue bristles intertwined with white ones. The blue dye is meant to fade out, signaling the time when you need to replace your toothbrush. Dentists say that toothbrushes should be replaced every 3 to 4 months, but it does serve as a great reminder in case you forget. Still love playing with Lego? Don't judge. Hey, it's a great hobby for all ages. Notice there's a hole on top of the Lego heads? Behold, you're looking at a safety feature that the people at Lego designed to prevent choking hazards. The most dangerous issue should a person swallow any of these pieces is the blocking of the airways. Designing a hole inside the Lego head helps the air to flow freely through the piece until it can be removed safely. We're now used to all sorts of modern light bulbs, some tubular, some shaped like diamonds, and some even twisted altogether. Historically, light bulbs were round and the initial shape served a purpose in itself. It was mainly connected to the fact that glass bulbs were hand-blown, which gave them the round shape to begin with. The hidden practical reason was that the light bulb filament needed to be at the same distance from every surface of the glass sphere. The easiest way to achieve this was to make the glass in the shape of a globe. If you look at it on the street, you'll think a fire hydrant is about 3 feet in height, but the actual size of the device used to provide water supply to firefighters all over the world is twice as large. That is, if you count the rest of the hydrant, which is hiding underground. They're mostly red, and it's not just a matter of urban design. First of all, they need to be of bright, easily noticeable colors so firefighters can spot them fast when they need to. The choice of color depends on how much water the hydrant can hold. It can sometimes vary depending on the location, but here's the breakdown. A red fire hydrant can splash 500 gallons of water per minute. while an orange one at least 1,000 gallons. Green ones mostly process 1,500 gallons of water per minute, and the most plentiful ones colored blue can generally contain over 1,500 gallons. Hey bowling fans, isn't it super annoying when your bowling ball gets cracked? Turns out that most of them get damaged because of incorrect storage or spikes in temperature. Now come on and face it, since it's already cracked a bit, aren't you curious what's actually inside the bowling ball? 'Cause I sure am. Let's have a look. They mostly make the inner core of the ball of powdered metal oxides, like calcium or iron oxide. They mix them with some resin and catalyst to harden the whole mixture. So that light bulb shape you now see inside of the ball is actually its heaviest part. It also influences how your
These days, it's quite simple to make a mirror. Producers take a regular sheet of glass as a base. Then they apply a reflective coating. This usually means spraying a thin layer of either silver or aluminum onto the back of the sheet of glass. This process is called silvering. Some kinds of car wax contain carnauba wax, also called Brazil wax. That's a vegetable wax people get from the fronds of the carnauba tree growing in Brazil. To get the wax, the leaves of this tree first get dried and then beaten. Ooh, ooh, ow, ow! This is how you can remove the powdery wax. Now, pencils. First, their leads are made by mixing clay and graphite powder. This mixture is then baked. After that, pencil bodies are made. If they're wooden, the material should be chosen carefully. It should be soft enough to sharpen, but tough enough not to break. When the pre-cut sections are delivered to the factory, they have grooves cut in them. These grooves will later accommodate the leads. Then special glue is added. This way the leads will stay in place. Next, every second section is sent to a special conveyor, and the leads are placed in the grooves. Then another section is glued to the one filled with leads. We get a large multi-pencil sandwich. Sandwich, I'm getting hungry. The two parts of this sandwich get compressed and cut lengthwise. Then they're shaped and form separate pencils. Lava lamps were invented in the middle of the 20th century. The magic happening inside is due to the right amount and type of ingredients. Two of them are oil and paraffin wax. The oil helps the wax heat up, and once it's heated, it starts rising up slowly. Once the blob reaches the surface, it cools down and sinks back to the bottom. Now, nutmeg is a strongly flavored spice used in many cuisines all over the globe. Despite its name, nutmeg isn't a nut. It's technically a seed native to the Spice Islands and East Indies tropical islands. Nutmeg grows on trees, and the seed itself is sealed in a shell. Once it's ripe, the outer shell cracks open. Chocolate comes from the cacao tree, which is native to the Amazon. These trees also grow in Central and South America and some other tropical climates in Africa and Asia. The seeds of the cacao tree are very bitter. They have to be fermented to develop the flavor you're used to. After this process, the beans get dried, cleaned, and roasted. The shell is removed, and crumbled bits of dried cocoa beans are ground to cocoa mass. This mass is then used in the production of all kinds of chocolatey things. In the past, people used to chew different types of aromatic substances, including beeswax, tree resin, or even aromatic twigs. But modern-day chewing gum is made of a natural latex-like ingredient called chicle. It gets extracted from trees. Modern marbles are made from glass. The first step is to melt recycled glass and previously rejected marbles that turned out to be too small or too big. About 15 hours later, the molten glass is ready for processing. A special cutter bar moves through the stream of liquid glass every half a second. It separates small pieces of glass. They're future marbles called slugs. The faster the cutter bar moves, the smaller the marbles are. After that, the still hot slugs are sent through several constantly rotating metal rollers. They keep the slugs apart and also cool them. These ridged rollers also give the marbles their spherical shape. As for the marble's final coloring, it's determined already at the melting stage. That's when the air passes the coloring through the glass. You can find springs everywhere, from tools, electronics, and toys to pens and mattresses. They come in different forms, for example, torsion, wire, extension, or compression springs. When a spring is made, a steel cord is passed to a dereeler. How thick this cord is depends on what kind of spring we need. The dereeler unwinds the roll and sends the cord to a computer-controlled forming machine. That's where the cord gets coiled to the needed length and cut into pieces. Now, to produce tomato ketchup, one of my favorites, you need tomato paste or puree, sugar, or some other natural sweetener, salt, spices, vinegar, and onion powder. First, the needed volume of the tomato paste is heated while being constantly stirred. Then other ingredients are added as well. Before the ketchup is bottled, it has to go through several cooling stages. Meanwhile, bottles are already aligned and waiting to be filled with the ketchup. This usually happens automatically. At the end of this process, caps and labels are added to the bottles. Cashew nuts are rich in plant protein, healthy fats, and fiber, and low in sugar. But they're some of the most expensive nuts out there, and no wonder. The cashew tree, native to tropical regions of Brazil, produces a long stalk called a cashew apple. It resembles a small pear. Well then, why don't they just call it a cashew pear? Anyway, at the end of this stalk, there's a kidney-shaped nut. It's protected by a double shell that contains a poisonous, oily substance. It's the main reason cashews aren't sold in their shells like peanuts or pistachios. Cashews need to be dried and roasted first. This removes the toxins and makes the shell brittle and much easier to remove. Nail polish, as we know it today, is a rather modern invention. It became popular at the beginning of the 20th century. Different companies use different kinds of chemicals and ingredients to produce nail polish. But one of these ingredients is always the same: nitrocellulose. This substance is actually liquid, but it gets mixed with plasticizers. They make nail polish more flexible and allow you to wear it longer. The process of creating ice cream sandwiches is pretty simple. First, ice cream gets whipped. It's done to add some air. The resulting substance is then sent to the next part of the assembly. There, 2 lines of wafers are already sandwiched together, and ice cream is simultaneously injected between them. It happens so quickly that more than 100 ice cream sandwiches can be made in a minute. How many can I eat in a minute? There are all kinds of plastic brooms out there, but there's one type that's made from recycled plastic bottles. With people buying 1 million plastic bottles all over the world, it's a cool way to reuse plastic. Tires production is a multi-step process. Tires are made from more than 15 main ingredients. Among them, there's synthetic and natural rubber, carbon black pigment, and chemical additives. Giant mixers stir these ingredients under high pressure and temperature. The final result is almost always thin rubber gum. It gets rolled into sheets. After that, tires get assembled on a special machine. Different kinds of cloth, rubber, and metal are used for the production of a tire. Finally, the tire gets cured in a special press under more than 300 degrees of heat and high pressure. This process lasts for 12 to 15 minutes. When they make darts, the flight shafts are produced first. 10-foot-long aluminum rods are put into a special machine. It has a few cutting tools that work from several angles at the same time. The rod turns into shafts. There are threads cut into each flight shaft so that it can be later attached to the dart barrel. That's the part you hold and fling. On the other end, a cross saw makes slots for the arrow flights. At the same time, brass rods turn into the barrels on another machine. Grooves are cut into the barrel surface. This makes them easier to hold. And finally, they produce a dart point. It's done with the help of a hydraulic press. It forces pointed steel into the hollow part of the barrel. And dart's all there is about how they make darts.
You're heading to a supermarket to get a few small items. The self-service checkout is way faster than waiting for people to unload their huge shopping carts.
Analyzing now.
But this loud voice from a machine, commanding over and over again, spoils all the appetite.
Analyzing now.
I have some good news for you. You can turn it off. Take a closer look at the screen. You'll probably see a volume button at the bottom. Use your finger to mute the annoying polite voice once and for all. Not all machines have this hidden option though, but it's definitely worth checking out. Usually, a sunflower oil bottle has this weird inner cap. Most people remove the entire top layer and throw it away. But there's actually a better way to use it. Turn the removed element inside down and put it into the bottleneck. It will make a great dispenser, and you'll never spill more oil than you wanted in your salad. Planning a picnic with your friends in the wild? Forget about the classic picnic basket. We got it all wrong. It's not a basket, but a bucket. Yep, it's way better to put your picnic stuff into several buckets. This will help evenly distribute the weight among all guests. And when you find a nice spot for your picnic and get all the stuff out, turn the buckets over and use them as stools. When the food is over, put the buckets into each other to save space on the way back home. Your toast is getting burnt, but you don't have any kitchen tongs at hand? Take 2 identical forks, put them together tine to tine. Stick them tightly with a rubber band, and voila, your tongs are ready. Ever wondered what this double bottom under the Nutella lid is for? There's only one way to find out. Here's a brand new Nutella jar. Let's remove the white carton circle and then peel off the foil. Surprise! There should be a little knife to cut the gold foil cover. Now you know how to get access to your favorite guilty pleasure without scratching your hands. Don't throw away the glass jar after you're done with Nutella. It can turn into a candle holder or a lantern. Wash it, paint it to your taste, add some decorations or lettering.
While they stretch the tape. Well, I can't wait to try it out for myself. As for the margins in your notebook, they were invented to protect people's notes from mice. No, the mice weren't copying your answers for the math quiz. Actually, there were times when people had to cohabitate with rats and mice that often chewed on paper. So, to prevent information from getting completely lost, people created margins. This way, texts were moved closer to the middle of pages and remained unharmed by rodents. Perhaps this is where to digest information came from. And what about those tiny holes at the bottom of airplane windows? They have an extremely important function of regulating the air pressure inside the cabin. In other words, they help planes fly high up in the sky. Big responsibility, right? By the way, tray tables on an airplane are the germiest places inside the entire cabin. Studies showed that the trays had 8 times the amount of germs on the toilet flush button. Now, how about we cut a commercial airplane in half and see what's inside? Well, it would look more or less like this. Rows of seats on top and everything else that needs to be stored at the bottom. I'm talking about passengers' luggage, emergency supplies, parts of the wing system, and so on. Moving on to bowling balls. Yes, I know it's a clumsy transition. Anyway, have you ever wondered what the insides of a bowling ball look like? If you have cut a professional ball in 2, you'll see a familiar shape. Look closely. Do you see it? Doesn't that look like the logo of Brightside? Anyway, professional bowling balls are different from the ones in your local bowling alley. That's because they're designed to make fancy moves. They actually have some really complex engineering inside. They're shaped to help skilled professionals get more strikes. According to a specialist, they have to ensure that the paste in all the stripes has the same physical properties. This way, the colors are naturally prevented from mixing with one another. That's why, if you tear a tube open, you'll see something that looks like several slices of pizza in different colors. If you open your closet, you're bound to find at least a few wooden hangers. Usually, they're made of cedar wood, which is a natural moth repellent. So, cedar hangers actually protect your clothes from moth infestation. For some people, more than others, eyeliner is an everyday must. Boy, isn't it. But did you know that back in ancient Egyptian times, both men and women used kohl eyeliners to protect their eyes from the sun's glare? Way to go for the Egyptians for figuring that out. Now, if I could just learn to walk like one. Normally, we use headrests for the purpose of, well, resting our heads, right? Well, not only. As it turns out, headrests can be easily removed from the seats and used to break car windows in case of emergencies. Now, this one is a trick very few people know about. You probably place your doormat horizontally, like most of us do. But doormats serve the purpose of absorbing dirt from the soles of your shoes before you enter your home. So, for this function to work as it's meant to, the best way to place a doormat is vertically. This way, you take more steps on the top of the doormat before entering your house. And last but not least, now I don't want to be accusatory here, but you have probably been vacuuming your house the wrong way, and I can prove it. Most people just vacuum floors and carpets in one direction or move the brush back and forth several times, thinking they've got all the dust out. But according to cleaning professionals, the best way to vacuum is in rows. First, you go forward with the brush until you arrive at the end of the row. Then, you fluff the carpet up and move back down along the same row, gathering the dust that wasn't collected in the first sweep. Talk about efficient cleaning. On the other hand, my idea of house cleaning is to sweep the room with a glance. Hey, I don't want to disturb that protective layer of dust. Now here's a trick. Instead of putting the box grater vertically on top of a plate, put it horizontally, with no plate underneath, of course. This way you won't risk scraping your knuckles because only your fingertips will eventually touch the grater when you reach the end of the process. Also, it gives the grater more stability, when otherwise you'd have to balance the grater or even hold it in the air with the other hand. When you're done, or when there's just too much grated stuff on the bottom wall of the grater, simply turn it on its side to pour the contents into the bowl or plate. Flowers in a vase would stay fresher for longer if not for the bacteria that breed in the water. Since copper has some antibacterial properties, dropping a penny into the water will help keep the microbes at bay and let you enjoy your flowers for that little bit longer. An easy way to check if your bed linen has dried completely is to put a small mirror in between the layers for about 5 minutes. If the mirror has steamed up when you pick it up, it means the sheets are still a bit damp. Let them dry until the mirror stops getting cloudy. A damp bed is a lovely breeding ground for fungi and bacteria. Okay, I'm in. If you have a not very healthy habit of eating in front of your computer, you'll be surprised at how much crumbs and grime there is inside your keyboard. Now, you can just turn it over and shake it vigorously, of course, but that's not very good for any piece of tech, you know. So instead, take a Post-it note and run its sticky part over the keyboard. It will collect the little pieces of trash like magic. Even a better way to do it, though, is to take a slime and stick it to the keyboard, then take it away, squeeze it, and stick again in another part. The slime will fill the entire space between the keys, and its sticky properties will let it gather every little bit of garbage. Separating egg yolks from whites is easier using a plastic bottle. Break the necessary number of eggs into a bowl, and then take an empty plastic bottle and squeeze it. Hold the bottle over the yolk and release. It'll pull in air and the yolk together, leaving the white in the bowl. Repeat with the rest of the yolks and you're done. And that's no yolk. If you're tired of spitting out the stones when eating cherries or want to make a cherry pie, push the stones out with a straw. Also, many garlic presses have a special tool on their handle that can be used exactly for that. Cleaning a blender can be a nuisance if you do it manually. Instead, fill it with hot water and add some liquid soap or detergent, then run it for about 10 seconds. Rinse it afterwards, and it's clean. Plaster walls can crumble, flake, and spread dust all over the floor when you hammer nails into it. Cut a strip of masking tape and stick it to the place you want to hammer a nail in. The tape won't let the plaster crack and crumble, leaving the hole neat and clean. Small scratches and dents on wooden furniture can be removed with some toothpaste or a walnut. For toothpaste, rub a pea-sized amount of it into the scratch until it's gone, then wipe the leftovers with a damp cloth. For a walnut, take a half of that brain-shaped nut and rub it into the dent. Then rub the area with your fingers and buff it with a soft cloth.
Imagine a plane making an emergency landing in the open sea. Everything's going well. The aircraft is sliding on the water. Then rescue boats sail to this place to evacuate the passengers. They leave the plane through emergency exits located above the wings. Before the door opens, the escape slide inflates. Passengers need to walk on the wing and go down the slide, but the wing surface is slippery because of water. They might fall and get hurt. To prevent this, the stewards install a rescue rope. They attach one end to the door and the other to the edge of the wing, passing it through these hooks. During the evacuation, people hold on to this cable like a railing and don't fall. They can also attach rescue boats to the wing with a rope and these hooks, so the sea won't take people far away from the plane. By the way, the plane can stay on the water for 10 minutes to 60 hours, depending on the model, weather conditions, and the pilot's skills. Both the main and emergency exits have extra handles for crew members. During an evacuation, people may panic and accidentally push the flight attendants off their feet. To avoid a fall, they hold onto these handles. A seat belt on an airplane has a slightly different purpose from that in your car. The one in the vehicle protects you from a horizontal hit. When a plane is going through turbulence, it's shaking up and down. Your waist belt keeps you from hitting the ceiling. Crew members have handcuffs for problem passengers. If someone behaves badly and interferes with the flight attendants have the right to chain them to their seats. To do this, they use police handcuffs or plastic ties. This is the maximum that can be done during the flight. Then they report a rowdy person to the airport and hand them over to the police after landing. During an emergency, oxygen masks drop automatically. They have an extra purpose you might not know about: to equalize the pressure and prevent panic. Air pressure can change because of turbulence, so, among other things, the masks help passengers stay calm. Your seat is your safe haven. That life jacket under it won't let you drown. Also, the seat's surface is made of waterproof material. If water gets into the cabin, the seat will save you from freezing, since it won't get wet. It's also fireproof. The cover can prevent the fire from spreading through the cabin. But more importantly, it can save you from the flames. Of course, you'll most likely never have to use this feature, but it's nice to feel safe, isn't it? You can use the tray table in the seat in front of you like a hammock. Just tie a belt, a blanket, or a towel around the table and stretch your feet out. You might have noticed black triangles on the wall above the seats. For you, as a passenger, they may indicate the seats that have the best view of the wings, where you can take the most beautiful flight photos. But the triangles weren't created for your camera. The crew members monitor the condition of the aircraft through windows under these signs. Suppose the wings freeze, the engine catches fire, or the pilot receives a signal about some problem. In that case, the crew will quickly move to the triangles and assess the situation. And there you are, sitting under the triangle, looking at the wing and thinking, why are the wings located in the lower part of the plane? They could install them above the windows or right in the center. Actually, some planes have them in the middle and higher up, and each location makes sense. The engine and turbines are under the wings. It's much easier to repair them since they're close to the ground. And in case of an emergency landing in the sea, the wings act as a rescue cushion. They help to keep the plane on the water. Empty fuel tanks under the wing can also help the plane stay on the surface. But this position has certain risks. Debris can get into the turbines on the runway. Fortunately, this is unlikely to happen since they carefully clean it. Planes with wings in the middle get the least air resistance. That's why they build fighter jets and supersonic aircraft this way. Big cargo planes have wings in the upper part of the hull. Thanks to it, the aircraft stays close to the ground. It makes it easier to load cargo. Also, it's safer to land on unprepared runways with high wings, since debris won't get into the turbines. The aerodynamics of these planes works better thanks to such wings. They get less air resistance and deliver cargo faster. Oxygen inside the masks is a combination of chemicals. The transportation of oxygen tanks is too expensive for the airline. They take up a lot of space and increase weight, which leads to extra fuel consumption. Therefore, they use a chemical oxygen generator. It's located in the panel above your head. There's a small tank with barium, sodium, and potassium compounds. They mix and create a hot chemical reaction that releases oxygen and passes it into the mask. Small holes in windows save the glass from breaking. The air pressure inside the aircraft is much stronger than that outside. The difference is so big that the air can just break the glass from the other side. To prevent this, they drill small holes. The air penetrates there and reduces the load on the window. By the way, they have a round shape for the same reason. It's ideal for an equal distribution of air. If they were square or triangular, air streams with moisture would accumulate in the corners. It would lead to destruction. Plus, all water gets dried out thanks to the hole. Windows are made of triple glass. The outer glass takes the pressure. The middle one works like a fuse. The third layer protects the second one from passengers who like to touch it. Technically, the plane could fly with one layer, but it would be dangerous. They also installed extra protection for the wheels. They experience huge loads during landing, but don't worry, they won't burst. The tires,
But the more it cools down, the more water it loses. Starch molecules get their original crystallized state back. Also, recrystallization happens way faster in the fridge. The sole of your sneakers, and even the tires of your car, are just one huge molecule. It's because when rubber is vulcanized, all the molecules become connected through the sulfur, so they turn into one, but a really large molecule. Your jeans are blue on the outside and white on the inside because of a smart way to weave the fabric. The warp thread is dyed, while the weft thread has no color, it's just white. This way, manufacturers reduce the amount of dye needed for each piece of clothing. By the way, most jeans are blue because they were originally dyed with indigo dye with a rich blue tint. This dye was picked for the way it interacted with cotton. When the cotton is heated, most dyes just penetrate it, but indigo dye stays attached to the surface. As a result, each time people wash their jeans, the dye molecules escape the fabric, leaving a unique pattern on each garment. Today, manufacturers use synthetic indigo dye. Bananas have thick skin to keep insects away. However, it gets thinner as the fruit ripens. Once the banana is ripe, it starts getting water from its skin. Birds and animals can also tear the thin skin easily. Hey, smart move, Mother Nature. The public toilets tend to be U-shaped for hygienic reasons. This way, anyone who wants to use it is less likely to get in contact with ceramic, normally swarming with germs. The bottled water has an expiration date. However, the water itself doesn't go bad. The problem is about the bottle. The plastic starts releasing. This technique is called a middle suspension. This way, they're protected better in their styrofoam cup, and it also helps those noodles soften more evenly and quickly. Now, chewing gum wasn't invented for keeping your breath fresh. It was supposed to be a replacement for rubber. But the rubber experiment failed, giving opportunity to a modern version of chewing gum. Sandwiches have all their filling in between two slices of bread to keep the hands clean. Well, at least it was so when the first sandwich was invented. Some centuries ago, I wasn't around then, the 4th Earl of Sandwich, John Montagu, asked his chef to cook him something yummy he could eat without interrupting his long binge. The chef, I think he was named Pastrami or something, wrapped meat and all the other ingredients in the bread to make the dish grease-proof. And finally, all the ingredients in margherita pizza stand for one of the colors in the Italian flag. Basil represents the green stripe, mozzarella represents the white one, and tomatoes, or tomatoes, represent the red stripe. And if you want it tastier, use ugly tomatoes.
Some men wear shoes with hidden heel lifts to look taller. Such shoes can make a person up to 6 inches taller. They look like regular shoes, but inside they have this extra insert. Sometimes, such an insert is glued down. Sometimes it's removable, and you can choose the height you need yourself. When the Titanic hit the iceberg and sank sometime later, the Atlantic Ocean was around 28 degrees Fahrenheit, which means the water was below its freezing point. No wonder so many passengers didn't make it. Some birds have a row of bristles protruding from the edges of their eyelids. Those bristles can probably be called eyelashes, but while human eyelashes are modified hairs meant to protect the eye, bird eyelashes are modified feathers. Identical twins don't actually have the same fingerprints, so you can't blame your misdeeds on your sibling after all. Different factors during development in the womb, like the position of the womb, umbilical cord length, and the rate of finger growth impact fingerprints. Earth's rotation speed is changing. It's slowing down right now while we're talking. It means that, on average, the length of the day gets 1.8 seconds longer every century. 600 million years ago, a day lasted a mere 21 hours. Most world maps are wrong. On the majority of maps, they still use the Mercator projection, which was the first developed in 1569. But this method is very inaccurate and makes Alaska look as large as Brazil, while in reality, it's 5 times smaller. As for Greenland, it looks 14 times larger than it actually is. For a map to be precise, it would need to be life-sized and round, not flat. Ants don't have lungs. They breathe through tiny openings known as spiracles. An ant may have 9 or 10 of those on each side of the body, depending on the species. The average color of the universe is poetically called cosmic latte. In a 2002 study, scientists discovered that the light coming from other galaxies averaged into a beige color that was very close to white, just like the drink beloved by many. There is such a thing as minus decibels. The quietest place on Earth is Microsoft's anechoic chamber in Redmond, USA. The level of sound there is minus 20.6 decibels. Such chambers are built out of heavy concrete and bricks and are placed on springs to stop vibrations from entering the chamber through the floor. Bananas are radioactive. Wait, where did you go? It's not that bad. Bananas are rich in potassium, so each banana is slightly radioactive due to the natural isotope potassium-40. On the other hand, your body contains around 16 milligrams of potassium-40, so you're actually about 280 times more radioactive than that poor banana. And in any case, your body gets rid of that excess potassium-40 from strong-smelling chemicals when they feel threatened or angry, or when they're being squished. Trapjaw ants release a chocolatey smell when they're crushed, and citronella ants give off a lemony odor when they're threatened. Giraffes hum when they want to communicate with each other. Researchers think that this low-frequency humming might be a form of contact call between individuals that have been separated from their herd. It can also help giraffes find each other in the dark. But the coolest thing about these magnificent animals? Some scientists think that they could sleep talk too. And a cool bonus story for you. About a marathon runner who took over 50 years to finish the race. Japanese marathoner runner Shizo Kanekuri was selected as one of the 2 athletes that Japan could send to the 1912 Stockholm Olympics. But Kanekuri shockingly disappeared during the marathon race. It turned out that after a rough 18-day-long trip to Stockholm, first by ship and then by train, the man was exhausted. During the race, he stopped running because his condition simply didn't allow him to run further. The athlete stumbled into a nearby garden party where he drank orange juice and stayed for a while to recover. Later, Kanekuri was so embarrassed by his failure that he returned to Japan without notifying anyone, including race officials. So, Swedish authorities considered him missing for 50 years before finding out that he was peacefully living in his home country. In 1967, the athlete was offered the opportunity to finish his run. He accepted. 54 years, 8 months, 6 days, 5 hours, 32 minutes, and 20.3 seconds after he started the race, he completed the marathon. It was a long trip. Along the way, the man got married, had 6 kids, and 10 grandchildren.
So you're on a desert safari, but things don't go as planned. Now you've run out of water in one of the hottest and driest places on the planet. You might think not all vehicles have removable headrests, and those that are detachable are not necessarily sharp. Touching a baby bird will make its parents abandon it. Actually, birds have a limited sense of smell, so they're unlikely to detect human scent on their babies. This misconception often leads people to leave fledgling birds alone, thinking they're helping. But in reality, these young birds might need assistance. But also, it's common for young birds to leave the nest before they can fly well, and their parents usually to continue to feed them on the ground. If you find a baby bird that has fallen out of its nest, it's best to leave it alone as the parents are likely nearby and will continue to care for it. The widespread belief that humans use only 10% of their brains is a myth too. Advanced neuroimaging tools like PET scans show that the entire brain is active, even during sleep. These scans reveal continuous activity across the brain, involved in functions such as regular bundling up because you think cold weather causes colds. Well, it's not exactly the air that's to blame. It's true that we often start sniffling when the temperature drops, but it's not the cold itself doing the deed. The real culprits are the viruses that cause colds, which just happen to love those lower temperatures. So while chilly weather provides a cozy playground for these germs, catching a cold still requires catching the virus. In other words, it's not the frosty weather, but the frosty weather-loving viruses that you need to watch out for. Oh look, it's that time again when a Facebook privacy hoax makes the rounds, convincing people that a simple copy-paste can magically protect their data. Yes, the classic "I do not give Facebook permission" spiel is back, charming users into thinking this status update is a legally binding shield against privacy breaches. Spoiler alert, it's not. These posts claim that declaring sovereignty over your personal content on your timeline will stop Facebook from using your photos, information, and messages. Facebook's actual policies and user agreements, which everyone agreed to by signing up, still hold the real power. Shaving a double-coated dog is okay? No, it's a big no-no, with some lasting downsides. These dogs have a soft undercoat and a tougher top coat. Shaving messes up their growth balance, leading to a mismatched and not-so-pretty coat. Plus, there's only a 50-50 chance the double coat will return to its former glory, if at all. Contrary to popular belief, shaving doesn't cool them down. It actually wrecks the coat's natural air circulation system. Other risks include matting, sunburn, and impaired temperature regulation. The coat might never look or feel the same again. Go for a de-shedding treatment. It removes excess undercoat, helps your dog stay cool, and keeps the coat in top shape, all without the drama of a full shave. It's time to look at common misconceptions and myths associated with treating frostbite. Rubbing frostbitten skin cannot help. It can actually worsen the condition and lead to tissue damage. The idea that hot water should be used for rewarming the affected areas is wrong, too. Use lukewarm water.
And sneaky thieves are trying to make easy money by simply taking it from the racks. It's not just cheese, though. Other interesting items on the thieving list include fresh meat, chocolate, and seafood. Ferrero, the company behind those luscious jars of Nutella, needs about 25% of the world's hazelnuts every year. So if you think about it, 1 in 4 hazelnuts ends up in a chocolatey jar. The manufacturers get the nuts from Turkey, Italy, and Chile, making sure they get them delivered from both the northern and southern hemispheres to keep things fresh. Nutella's impact on the economy is even bigger than you'd imagine. Because of this demand, the price of hazelnuts went through the roof. In 2014, a frost hit Turkey's hazelnuts, supply got halved, and prices were even higher. Now, even places like New Jersey are trying to grow those Nutella-worthy nuts. When you imagine someone trying to sneak something into space, your first thought wouldn't be a sandwich. But back in 1965, during a Gemini mission, astronaut John Young brought a corned beef sandwich on board, going against NASA rules. He hid it in his spacesuit pocket before blastoff. About 2 hours into the 5-hour trip, he went to the mission commander and offered him this unlawful treat. The commander, being a good sport, took it, and they shared a quick, savory moment. He even put the unfinished sandwich in his own spacesuit pocket to avoid crumbs making a mess of the spacecraft. Meanwhile, the official NASA-approved food was waiting patiently in a box nearby. Surely, radishes aren't your first pick when it comes to salad ingredients, but they have quite an interesting history too. These mustard, broccoli, cabbage, and cauliflower cousins have been grown and eaten for longer than you'd imagine, even before the Romans were famous in ancient Egyptian times. In fact, radishes were used as currency for the people who built the pyramids, alongside onions and garlic. You'd think the English are champions when it comes to drinking tea, but you'd be wrong. Turkey is in fact the tea capital of the world. Every Turk drinks an average of 1,300 cups of tea each year. On a regular day, they're sipping on 3 to 5 cups, but when winter hits, they can reach 10 cups a day. Locals claim tea is like a social custom for them. It's more than just a hot beverage. It's an excuse to sit down, enjoy the atmosphere, and connect with loved ones. When it comes to types, black tea is preferred. There might be a magical drink hidden in your fridge. It's tonic water, and it might be able to glow in the dark. If you're curious, test it out with some ultraviolet light. The secret behind this glow is pretty simple. Tonic water has quinine, a chemical that lights up under certain conditions. Quinine was used back in the day to treat certain health problems. The stuff was so bitter that some people started mixing it with sugar and soda water. In simple terms, things glow because they absorb light energy, gets all excited, and then releases it as visible light. Quinine in tonic water absorbs and releases energy, making your drink look like it's from a fairy tale. There's an interesting connection between what we hear and what we taste. Scientists investigated and found that people worldwide link certain sounds with specific flavors, and they call it cross-modal correspondence. High-pitched sounds match up with sweet and sour tastes, while the lower, jarring sounds go hand in hand with bitterness. If it's staccato, think crunchy, and if it's smooth and flowing, think creamy. Some even found music that can enhance the taste of chocolate. In this study, when people listened to a high-pitched, sweet soundtrack while eating chocolate, they thought it was sweeter than when they'd heard a lower, more dissonant soundtrack.
Ah, the toothpick. This seemingly ordinary item that you often use after devouring a burger has a secret history that'll make your jaw drop, pun intended. Don't be fooled by its slim appearance. The toothpick has been around for ages. Long before archaeologists could dig up physical evidence of ancient toothpicks, those toothy wonders were made from materials that fell apart faster than leftovers in the back of your fridge. Yep, I'm talking about wood. However, clever researchers have found hints that Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens were hardcore toothpick enthusiasts. They've studied prehistoric bones and deduced that our ancestors regularly used some sort of tool to keep their pearly whites clean. In fact, they even found scratch marks on a tooth that suggest our predecessors were serious toothpickers. In hindsight, it probably wasn't the best idea for the delicate enamel coating of human teeth. Fast forward to more recent times, but still ancient, mind you, and toothpicks were all the rage among various ancient civilizations. Literary sources have spilled the beans on this peculiar obsession. According to an ancient Greek historian, a local tyrant met his doom by using a poison-coated toothpick. Yikes! And guess what? Toothpicks from those times have survived the test of time for us to see even today. These fancy picks were often made from more durable materials, like bone or precious metals. Who knew a tiny stick could be so dangerous and luxurious at the same time? Now let's talk about toothpick fashion. Oh yes, it was a thing too. Even during the medieval period, when life was all castles and chivalry, folks flaunted their upper-class status with gold or silver toothpicks elegantly tucked away in snazzy cases. Europeans really knew how to stand out from the toothpick-wielding masses. One particular fancy toothpick dating from the 16th century is displayed at the British Museum. It's made with gold and even encrusted with pearls. The trend continued well into the 19th century, when the Duchess of Parma even had a whole dozen of valuable toothpicks as part of her dowry. At one point in history, some crafty ladies in Portugal came up with a toothpick innovation. Instead of using them to clean teeth,